Welcome to Clienting, your place to get information about legal marketing and client development. This is Kelly Street, Marketing Director for Attorney Sync.
And this is Gyi Sakalakis, one of the founders of Attorney Sync.
Welcome to episode number 9 of Clienting. Today, we're going to dive into a couple of topics based on some questions we've been getting from our listeners. So first of all, thank you guys so much for sending us possible topics and questions in. We really appreciate it because it not only helps us identify guests that could be really helpful, but it also lets us know what you guys are looking for and how we can tailor our topics a little bit better. So today we're going to dive into new firm marketing, and then if you're maybe not a new firm, how you can kind of identify your clientele and build that out a little bit more. So let's head into new firm marketing right away. So Gyi.
So you're starting out, let's say you're either just graduated. I mean, I think that some of this is applicable even for if you're looking for a job, but let's just say you are out on your own, you hung your shingle, and you're starting to think about how are you going to get clients. And some of this is stuff you already know, but I think it's important because I don't think people spend enough time doing this part, which is researching and brainstorming kind of who your ideal clients are and who are people in your life that might be able to refer you business, right? So everyone starts jumping to, oh yeah, I'm going to advertise, or I'm going to take out an AdWords account, or I'm going to take out an ad in the paper or whatever. And they overlook, most of the, when you're starting out, type of clients are going to be either friends and family referrals or other lawyers that for whatever reason, have cases or potential client situations that they don't want to take. And, they're looking to refer them to somewhere. I think the other thing to think about is where you're actually qualified to work on. So this is getting into more of like the mentoring stuff. But if you're brand new and you have nobody watching over your shoulder, I think that's where you should start building relationships with other lawyers, especially lawyers that, are experienced with the same type of clients that you want to work with, which again, some of this is going to be stating the obvious, but the other part of this is actually carving out time in your professional life to do this stuff. So I see so much of I want to get clients, but if you don't spend time actually creating, nurturing, and solidifying these professional relationships, it's not going to happen. It's not just something that you go to a networking event, and you're like, oh, that didn't work, I don't have any clients. This is a lot more like farming. You got to groom this stuff. You got to spend some time. And so carving out some percentage of your day, I don't know that there's if you don't have any business, you can spend a lot more time doing these types of things to build these relationships. And as you start getting more clients, it's important to remind yourself to continue to do that and not let that go by the wayside.
Yeah. So build your relationships, not only in your current network, but also with other lawyers that you might already know, networking events, that sort of thing. And if you're starting out and you have no clients, but you have a lot of time, spending some time doing that and cultivating those relationships, but then also, I like what you said, Gyi, on figuring out who your clients could be or who you could help.
Yeah, I think if we kind of go back to this idea of going to where your clients are and referral sources, for lack of a better way of saying it, lawyers, other professionals that are going to be interacting with the people that might be having the types of problems that you help with, that's where most of your time should be spent when you're getting started. And of course, make sure you're putting something into your system, whether it's a CRM or something, calendaring, whatever, to nudge you to stay in touch with that person. So the real power of the internet is that it gives you access in a much more efficient way to people that you can nurture professional relationships with. So maybe we'll take it up a notch in the advanced department. So you meet somebody that might be a good referral source, might be a mentor, whatever. Find out if they use things like LinkedIn. You can debate about the appropriateness of connecting on Facebook. Some people connect with everybody in their life on Facebook, others don't. In light of recent Facebook happenings, maybe that's not the first place to go to, but certainly I would look to see if they're on LinkedIn, if they, you can identify people if they're using LinkedIn very quickly because they have added a profile picture, built out their profile a little bit. But if they have, connect with them there and start sharing stuff there and following their stuff there. See if they write somewhere. If you don't serve the general public in a consumer facing practice, you should go look to see if their business or they as an individual are publishing stuff online. The obvious one is if they have a blog, subscribe to their blog, and where appropriate, start to participate in the conversation. So go connect with them there. So if they're writing about a topic that you have insight on, maybe you comment. Maybe you share that post on LinkedIn and give them attribution with the at their name so that it pops up and notifies them. But a lot of this stuff, especially early on, the things that you do in the real world to network, build relationships, stay in touch, taking that online, whether it's LinkedIn or something else, that's the big starting point because you're starting from scratch. So the focus needs to be, don't dive into the advertising, broadcast messaging side of things to start. Start with the go meet people in real life, take those relationships online, connect with people in the platforms they're using online, have a system to nudge you to follow up with people so that, maybe we use Nutshell CRM and there's a feature in Nutshell that will say, remind me to connect with this person once a month or maybe once a quarter. And then again, maybe if they like using email, shoot them an email and say, hey, would you like to grab coffee? You can also prompt for giving someone a call, especially as you're just getting started. You also want to be respectful of people's time. So especially with mentors, if you've got a mentor that is particularly busy, it's very important that you're very respectful of that person's time. But if you just meet the person and then you never do anything to stay in touch with them, I think that's where there's a lot of wasted opportunity.
So once you've kind of identified some possible mentors and you have a network of people in your field or in your practice area that you can look to for advice or for help, I think another really interesting thing to do is to research. Look at what people who are successful are doing besides just in your area and people that you can talk to. Look at, if you're going into personal injury, look at the successful personal injury blogs, look at their YouTube pages, look at what they're creating and the things they're doing to be successful. And maybe don't try to do everything or attack everything, but pick out some things that could work from you and fit with your brand.
How do you figure out who's successful?
Let's see, who's coming up in search results. If you're just talking to people around town or other lawyers, you can kind of figure out who's doing well and who's doing not so great. But I think one thing that's really important is don't just look for the guys who are everywhere and in your face. Look for the people who kind of match what you want to be doing and the kind of lawyer that you want to be. We're all about authenticity.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. I mean, I really like the idea of talking to lawyers in the community. It varies from place to place, but maybe your state's trial lawyer association or community of lawyers in your area have organizations, clubs, whatever, that they tend to gravitate towards, and getting out there and starting to meet people, I think is a great way to do that. How about for people that, they're really not doing volume, maybe they're only working with a handful of clients a year, and their focus tends to be more on developing very deep, long-lasting relationships with their clients and maybe finding opportunities in different ways to do different legal work for them over time. How do you approach that problem?
This is something that we've talked about, Gyi, the farming versus hunting. So kind of the high-value clients where you're building really deep and meaningful relationships with them so that hopefully you can have a longer-term relationship where you're working for them, they're contacting you over time, and you continue to be someone they look for, usually probably as an outside counsel, I'm guessing. So in those instances, I would suggest an approach like account-based marketing, where you are using something like LinkedIn or connections that you already have to try to build relationships with other people within the organization. So you can kind of be a trusted asset, not just for your acquaintance or your friend who works at that company, but then doing something like a lunch and learn. So you can contact the HR department, tell them how you could help their company in this other way, do a free lunch and learn with a company, and boom, you are now a resource that other people within the company know and trust.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The other thing that two things. One's kind of more conceptual and one's like more of an actionable tip. So first, conceptually, you've got to get in with somebody at one of these organizations that actually likes you, right? Because oftentimes as human beings, we don't make rational decisions. So even if you're the most qualified expert on a particular subject, which I think is a good thing to be, of course, you've also got to be the person that people want to go to. And the other thing is that it's not just they want to go to you for the specifics of what you do, but when they're thinking legal, they're thinking you. So say they're at a company, they're in the legal department or they're in some other department of the company, and something comes up at the business and there's a problem or a challenge, and the people at the business think, oh, maybe this touches legal. You want to be in that consideration set. The balance between if you become so niche that the person thinks of you, but then they think, oh, this person doesn't do this, versus the other side of the spectrum, which is we don't really know what this person does. We just know they're a lawyer. You want to be somewhere in between those two so that they're thinking about you when one of these issues comes up. So at the very least, they give you a call or they shoot you an email saying, hey, this is going on. Do you do this? Or do you know somebody who does this? And so those kind of conversations happen a lot more based on the liking and the trust, and not even so much on they think that you're the expert on this. Again, I think that's important. Don't get me wrong. Even for the more volume-based consumer practices, when someone thinks, I think I might need a lawyer, regardless of whether it's the specific stuff that you do or not, it's very useful professionally for you to be part of that consideration so that those people are actually at least pinging you to say, hey, is this something that you handle, or do you know somebody that handles this? Not only does that keep you top of mind for them, it's also going to help you solidify that relationship because they're coming to you as someone that can be a trusted person to get referrals for stuff that you don't even necessarily do.
Yeah. And two add-ons that I would make, just to go back to, I mentioned briefly LinkedIn, and one way that you can use that to build out those relationships within an organization is to look for the connections that you have in common, to specifically search for inside counsel or for HR people at a particular organization, and then see if there's a possible way that you can connect with them through that. And then one other really cool thing with LinkedIn, if you haven't done a slide share, which is a presentation tool through LinkedIn, you can put together a slide share that is revolving around a solution that you've come up with for an organization, or a question that you've gotten, a business problem that you know of. Put together a presentation, a little slide share, put that on your LinkedIn, share it to your network. And then when people are searching for the solution to a similar problem, or you're making a connection with someone at an organization, you can say, hey, here's something I've put together for a different organization, and here's how I helped them through the solution. Of course, not sharing any identifying information or anything that could get you in trouble with your bar association or your state ethics rules.
So I said I was going to give one conceptual tip and one actionable tip, and I never got to the actionable tip because I rambled about the conceptual tip. And I'm glad you brought up LinkedIn. One of the really powerful things with LinkedIn is their advertising platform. So, some people hate LinkedIn altogether. I think LinkedIn could do a lot to improve their actual functionality of their platform. But one thing that can work really well is doing very targeted ads. So you can select, I want to show a content piece, whether it's something you wrote on LinkedIn, whether it's a link back to a blog post on your own site, or whether it's a video. Share that to people that are in specific departments at specific companies. So if there's a company that you're really trying to get your foot in the door with, what better way than to share with them, your knowledge, skill, and experience through something you've written, a video, a slide share. And this is beyond just the organic sharing. This is extremely targeted advertising, but it's content advertising versus text ads. And I've seen that can work really, really well, even if those don't turn into like direct response clients for you. So, you're not getting the phone call of, hey, I saw your slide share, I want to hire you. You'll start to see that a trend of people from these companies or in these roles. Maybe you identify that people that include their role name as general counsel or HR or head of legal or whatever it is at these companies tend to be dealing with the issues that you can assist with. You can have messaging directly for them, and you'll start to see that they like, comment, and share on those posts, which helps increase the visibility of that content on LinkedIn. And also, you're getting your professional profile right in front of those people. and you're also not broadcasting to everybody. So to me, that's one of the areas, like if you're looking for something that's a little bit more advanced, custom content advertising on LinkedIn based on company names, job descriptions. You can do it based on company size. You can do it, obviously, geography. But that to me, in social advertising in general, that's a really effective way for folks that are trying to connect with people at businesses that might not be as just part of their organic network, is actually spending a little bit of money to get in front of them from an ads perspective. And it doesn't have to be that expensive. I mean, clicks on LinkedIn they tend to be a lot more affordable than they are on Google. So that's kind of more of an actionable advertising approach for that kind of practice.
Awesome. So thinking about content, thinking about advertising, if you're trying to do something a little bit more advanced, one thing I want to stress before you get started on any of these things, I would suggest to start with a 90-day plan. So before you're spending any money on ads, before you're putting together content, I would say lay out what you want the next 90 days of your marketing to look like and start there. Add in any social media you want to do, any online, any content, any events that you have if you're going to a particular networking thing, or if there's something that you have on your calendar that you can't miss, mark those things off. I know we've talked about content calendaring before and marketing plans, but look ahead at the next 90 days and see what you can realistically add in so that you're both on track and that you also give yourself enough time to let some of these things come to fruition. And you can check in at the end of the 90 days and see where things are at and if you've gotten any traction.
So my brain's stuck on paid media now online, but I got to set another idea that I think I've seen work pretty well. If you use managed placements in AdWords, so for those that have never done that, you basically pick a specific website that you want your display ads to show. And, people hear that and they're like, oh, banner ads, gross, ad blockers, no one's looking at those. But if you use managed placements and only show those ads on very specific sites that your audience is watching or is using, and your ad isn't give me a call or I'm a great lawyer, but is much more like download our 2018 report on such and such. Those kind of ads in the right place for the right audience on very specific sites can do very well to get people, number one, back to your site. The other great thing, too, is in business context. So one of the challenges that a lot of the consumer-facing practices have, like personal injury, bankruptcy, and criminal defense, they can't remarket to that audience because of privacy policy stuff with Google. But in the business setting, you certainly can. And so if you can use a managed placement ad to get somebody to click back to your site, you can retarget them so that when they go to other sites now, your ad shows up. And again, if your ad is informational and educational, free report or latest trends or our guide on, and you get them to actually download it. And as part of that download, you have an opt-in for other updates on the subject. Now you've collected their email and you've got their opt-in. Now you can go back and use those emails as a custom audience as well. And so now you can show ad messaging on LinkedIn specifically to people who have already engaged with your professional presence. So they've already seen your ad, they've already clicked on it, they've already downloaded and read what you had to say. And then you can show them other content specifically for them on LinkedIn. So maybe it goes manage placement ad, download a guide, get on an email list, you have an email nurture campaign, and then you also use that email list for a custom audience on LinkedIn. And instead of just showing them the guide again, you show them a video of you talking about the subject matter that you covered in the guide. And now you've turned that initial click into a variety of touch points across LinkedIn, websites that they actually read, their email, you give them video content. That can be a really powerful way to stay top of mind with them. I think it's really important that you consider how much exposure you're giving. Like you don't want to hit them with all that messaging over a very short period of time. But, if you're getting in front of them once a week, a couple times a month, validating that you're the expert on this kind of stuff and keeping them engaged with you, you'll find that stuff can work really well.
One other thing that just came to mind for me, I think probably because I work on a daily basis in a co-working space, but on your point, Guy, when you're talking about networking, I was thinking about how many lawyers are in the co-working space that I work in. And I know that some of those attorneys get clients from just the networking that they do within the space. And so if you're starting out as a solo or as a small, connecting with any of the co-working spaces in your area could be really helpful in getting you engaged with people who might want or need your services. And even if you can't afford a monthly office fee starting out, one other possibility, like I was talking about for corporate lunch and learns or going in and giving a presentation on a legal topic, you can go to organizations like a co-working space or something similar in your area and do presentations there as well, and talk about topics that are meaningful for people in your practice area.
Great idea. So just kind of connecting some dots. Even if you don't work at WeWork, go into your local WeWork, get the tour, see what kind of businesses are in there. If it matches up the type of clients that you want to help, maybe you buy just like the lowest level membership, which gives you access to like their networking community events, gives you access to their online portal, lets you get in front of them to share kind of the stuff you're doing and just socialize with them. And regardless of whether you actually sign up, WeWork does conduct a variety of educational seminars that you might be able to participate in. My guess is that it's more likely that you're going to be able to do those if you're actually in the WeWork network. I'm not 100% on that. I don't know if Kelly, if you have any insight on that, but presenting an educational event to a group of people in a WeWork and participating in that community, especially if you're in a larger market, is an amazing access to business owners, people that might be in need of your services. Great idea.
Thank you. And I know the particular one that I'm at, they will give kind of preference to people who are actually in the space there, because then they can mention that and everybody knows that they have access to you. But they do bring in outside people. So that is one option.
And also something I learned recently, I didn't know, and shame on me, but there are co-working spaces that are intended just for lawyers. There's one here in Chicago that I'm embarrassingly blanking on the name of, but I'll look it up and make sure it's in the show notes. But think about that. That's a whole network of lawyers who they're going to skew towards the more entrepreneurial. They're working in a co-working space, but all of these same opportunities are going to be available. And they're going to be people that are getting requests from their clients and people in their networks that are looking for a lawyer. And so where there's demand for services that they don't provide, what a great way to build relationships with a bunch of other lawyers, find mentors. Being in a community like that isn't just necessarily a professional organization, but that's like a day-to-day. How great is it to stay top of mind if you're down the hall from somebody that is getting a bunch of inquiries about the kind of work that you do and doesn't handle it?
Absolutely. So we've talked about LinkedIn. We've talked about making connections in person with lawyers. We've talked about how you can network at co-working spaces, building out a starter or mini marketing plan, account-based marketing. What else can people do to try to either build high value clients or start from scratch?
When you're just starting out, and going back to the idea of the web, most of what you do online doesn't cost you any money, right? It's time. Maybe you're trading some data, but participating on social platforms, going to websites, especially those that allow commentary, where your clients are or where your referral sources are, that's all free. And so that's where I would be spending a lot of my time, in addition to doing real world networking. And then on top of it, of course, I think that getting in the habit of regularly publishing, covering the area of the law that, especially if you're very niche, covering legislative updates, covering changes in the law, decisions that are coming down, and publishing about that kind of stuff online and sharing it. That's where I would start, because again, it's time intensive, but if you don't have any clients, you're just getting started, you probably have a lot of time on your hands. Meet new lawyers. We already covered that. So I don't want to beat that up too much, but getting your professional profile in front of people who are potentially clients and potentially referral sources, that's really the nuts and bolts of getting started.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. And then I just want to add a little bit more to the content side. So, like you said, you're getting started, or if you are trying to kind of rebuild or you're between client cases and you've got a lot of time, think about where you can be putting your content on your website, posting to other blogs like the ABA or any of the other lawyer publishing sites that are out there, YouTube, making videos, making infographics, making word posts, basically anything that you can create to further show that you're the expert that people can go to and making it on applicable topics. Gyi, I like that you said what you said about talking about legislative changes. I think that could be really powerful material to create for people when you have your non-lawyer clientele kind of breaking down how laws or changes can affect them. That could be really cool for people too.
Yeah, I think like standing for something in your community or your specific area, whether it's there's some legislative aspect or political aspect to it, giving a sense like this is what I do. These are who my clients are. These are who the people that I help. This is the perspective that we approach this problem from. It's really, really important because otherwise, if you try to stay down the middle of the road, if you try to appeal to everybody, if you try to walk the line on every single issue, you're going to get lost in the crowd. You know, you've got to stand out. You've got to stand up for something. You've got to demonstrate why your approach and why you're uniquely qualified to be able to assist in a particular matter. Like that's so essential. And so whether it's, we call it legislative, political, just the perspective from what your worldview is, I think it's really important to let that come through in what you're doing online. Don't be afraid of that.
Awesome. And we will be talking about branding and developing your brand in an upcoming episode. So I'm looking forward to going more into that and seeing how your brand can affect all of these different things. So I think we covered some good starter topics, and Gyi, you dove into some really cool advanced things that people can do to kind of build up or cultivate new clients. I hope that we answered your guys' questions. For those of you that wrote in, again, we really appreciate the feedback and the questions coming in. So keep those going. And if you do have any more questions or any marketing needs that we can solve for you at Attorney Sync, we are here and happy to help.